Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's Keshwani, Keshwani. We are here because we want to prepare for GMAT. We have been solving GMAT math problems out of this book here, the GMAT Official Guide 2024. If you do not own this book already, purchase one immediately. You're going to need it. Always make sure that this book is in front of you when we're working together. Today is our lesson number 38. Today we'll solve one single problem. That's it, only one problem that you will find on page number 99, problem number 161. As you can see, the problem is already on the blackboard. I'm going to read it to you, then I'm going to get out of the frame. You know the routine. I want you to pause the video, do it yourself first, and then we'll compare your work against the work that we'll do together. Okay, here we go. We are told that two experimental courses were taught in each of the 32 schools in the district. District has 32 schools, and each of these schools, these two experimental courses were taught by 37 teachers. Two courses were taught in each of the 32 schools by 37 teachers, and we are further told that each teacher taught at least one class, but taught no more than 3 classes. There was no teacher who taught no courses, and there was no teacher who taught more than 3. The question simply is this: if the number of teachers who taught 3 classes, is n, then the question simply is, what is the least and the greatest possible values of n? The least and the greatest possible values of n, they're given right here. These are the answer choices. 0, 13 means that no teacher taught 3 courses, or at the most 13 teachers taught 3 courses. The last answer choice tells you that the least number of teachers who could have taught 3 courses is 2, and the highest number of teachers who could have taught 3 courses is 8. 0, 13, 0, 14, 1, 10, 1, 9, and 2, 8. Go ahead, do it yourself. Well, let's see what we can do, shall we? Well, first thing we have to understand here is that since 2 courses are taught in 32 schools, you can gather from that the total of 64 classes were taught. That's a very important bit of information. Let's begin now. Now remember that we were told that there was no teacher who taught neither of these 2 courses, and there were no teacher who taught more than 3, which is very important. And we know now that 64 classes were taught. Here we go. So here, let's make a list of classes. 1 class, 2 class, and 3 classes. And here, the number of teachers who taught 1 class, number of teachers who taught 1 class, number of teachers who taught 2 classes, and number of teachers who taught 3 classes. And we are told in the problem itself that they're calling this quantity n. This is the guy we are interested in. What is the least possible value of this guy? What is the greatest possible value of it? So let's call these 2 unknown x and y. X and y means x and y. And this has to represent, if you were to simply add up these quantity, this will have to represent the number of teachers. Number of teachers who taught 1 course, x number of teachers taught 1 course, y number of teachers taught 2 courses, and we are told that the number of teachers who taught 3 classes were n. And therefore this has to add up to 37. Because that's how many teachers we have. Now let's look at the number of classes that were taught. This was number of teachers. This was number of teachers. Now let's look at number of classes. Number of classes taught. Here we go. If x represents the number of teachers, who taught 1 course, 1 class rather, then 1 times x must represent the number of classes taught by these teachers. Makes sense? If y represents the number of teachers who taught 2 classes, then 2 times y must represent the number of classes taught by the y teacher. And similarly, if n represents the number of teachers who taught 3 classes, then 3 times n must represent the number of classes taught by these n teachers. And that has to add up to, I believe we were told 64. Yep, 64. There we go. Let's see what we can do. Okay? Even though this is not lining up, but that's good enough. Let's begin. Let's begin our story. I'm going way too slowly here. So, we're going to subtract the bottom equation. We're going to subtract second equation from the first equation. Here we go. This is a positive guy, obviously. This is a positive. We're going to subtract it, so this becomes negative, this becomes negative, this becomes negative. This 64 is positive, it's going to become negative. Let's begin this story. A positive x and a negative x is going to go away. Y minus 2y will give us negative y. N minus 3n will give us negative 2n. And here we'll end up with 37 minus 64. I should have written the other way around, would have been easier, 37. And of course it will have a negative sign because I'm explaining too much. 14 minus 7 is 7. Looks like 27. Let's see what we can do. First thing we're going to do is multiply the entire equation by negative. So we have y plus 2n equals 27. And we're not interested in any of this mumbo jumbo. We are interested in this guy. So let's solve for n. So this implies that n has to equal 27 minus y divided by 2. This is what we have to play with. Let's do it on the top now. This quantity that we see there, n equals 27 minus y over 2. This is what we have to play with. I do not know why I had the urge to write that. There we go. I'm going to erase all of this thing now. We need the room. And we're simply trying to determine the maximum and the minimum value. We are almost there. We are almost done. As a matter of fact, we are only seconds away from getting done. So here we go. If we are trying to, let's first look at the maximum quantity, the greatest quantity, and then we'll look at the least. Let's first look at the greatest possible value, and then we'll take a look at the least. Okay? Let's begin. If you want n to be as large as possible, there is not much we can do. This is a constant, this is a constant. That's the only variable guy. And it appears in the numerator. So in order to make n as large as possible, because this is a fraction, we need to have the numerator as large as possible. So if we make y equal to 0, n would be as large as possible. 27 minus 0 divided by 2 will give us 13.5. But we got a problem here. X, y, and n, they all need to be integers because they represent people. X represents the number of teachers who taught only one class, y represents the number of teachers who taught 2 classes, and n represents the number of teachers who taught 3 classes. We can't have 13.5 teachers. Therefore, we cannot put y equal to 0. The least value we can put of y is 1. And if we put 1 in here, we get 27 minus 1 divided by 2, we get 13. There we go. That is the highest number of teachers that we can have. That is the maximum number of teachers that we can have who taught 3 courses. And we are done. That's the only answer choice with 13 in it. B, C, D, and E are gone. The answer is A. Yeah. As far as the exam is concerned, if I were taking the exam right now, I'll just go on with the next question. But since we are not taking the exam, let's just dive into it a little bit more, just for learning purposes, to verify this thing. Let's see what happens. Let's verify this. If n is equal to if n is equal to 13 and y is equal to 1, we know that x plus y plus n has to be, what was it? How many teachers do we have? 37. Let's quickly put in a number here. So we're trying to figure out the x plus 1 plus 13 equals 37. That implies that x would have to be 23. And now we can very quickly verify it. X represents the number of teachers who taught 1 courses, so 23 times 1. Y represents the number of teachers who taught 2 courses, so 2 times 1. And 13 represents the number of teachers who taught 3 courses, so 3 times 13. 3 times 13 is 39. This is just 2. This is 23. 25 plus 39. 25 plus 39. 25 plus 39. Better add up to 64, because that's how many classes were taught. In 32 schools, 2 classes were taught. We were told the total of 64 classes were taught. That better add up to 64. And as you can see, it does. It checks out. This is the correct answer. We don't have to do the mumbo jumbo. The answer is this one. But again, just for the learning purposes, let's figure out why it is 0. Let's pick up the speed. If you want this quantity to be as small as possible, if you're trying to figure out the least possible value of n, that's very simple. Make y equal to 27. If y is equal to 27, the numerator becomes 0, and that will give us n equal to 0. If n is equal to 0, again we can solve for x. We know that x plus y, which is 27, plus n, which is 0 in this case, has to add up to 37, which means in this case x must be 10. In this scenario, x must be 10. X represents the number of teachers who taught 1 courses. So here we go. 10 times 1 plus y represents the number of teachers who taught 2 courses. 2 times 27, and we can stop right here. 2 times 27 is 54. 54 plus 10. 54 plus 10 is 64, because this is 0. And 0 times 3. It does, again it adds up to 64. It checks out. The answer is A. We'll meet again tomorrow, okay? Bye now.